All right, let's do it. I'm just going to clap. Don't be weird. Cool.
We're here again.
It's finally happening. We've been wanting to get this guy on for a long time, and it's here. So, to all of our listeners and watchers, buckle up, because today we are joined by an absolute legend in the world of exotic animal medicine. Dr. Dan, we've got Dr. Dan Johnson with us. And I don't even know where to start, because your resume is pretty much a mic drop in itself. Like, you are just like the bomb.com. So tell me if I'm wrong, but you're a 1992 graduate of NC State Veterinary College?
That is correct.
Perfect.
And, I went into small animal practice for about 4.5 years after that, and I did see exotics while I was doing dogs and cats, but I eventually decided that the dogs and cats were boring enough and the exotics were exciting enough that I should pursue that full time.
Yeah. And then you opened the first avian and exotic only practice in Raleigh.
That is correct. In 1996, I saw my first house call as Dr. Dan with Avian and Exotic Animal Care. And we grew from house call to borrowed space to purchased land and built a building. And I'm in that building. And we went from one vet way long ago, and now we're 6 veterinarians strong.
Yeah.
Pretty strong.
And you've got an amazing hospital. We've already told our listeners, but we were lucky enough that you guys invited us to come and hang out for a few days and get to watch what you're doing.
Yeah.
And that was fun.
It was pretty darn cool. Yeah. You guys do get to see, we feel like we're doing something with exotics here, and then you get there and just the capacity in which you guys see exotics is amazing.
Well, we work hard at the good reputation thing, and the way we do that is just trying to keep it simple. People come in, we see their pets, we try to ensure as good an outcome as we can and treat people right, and they'll come back and they'll tell their friends, right? That's how you do it.
But you're not just working in a veterinary hospital. You have a lot of things going on in your life when it comes to exotic veterinary medicine. You're helping mold future exotic veterinarians.
Yes, we consider ourselves a teaching hospital because we almost always have a veterinary student or 2, and then we have currently 2 veterinary interns. These are qualified veterinarians. In some cases, they've already had a year of experience under their belt, but they're here to see just exotics for a year. And so we also have those veterinarians who are interns. You can call them exotic veterinarian trainees, but they're already vets. That's in addition to the 6 of us. So yeah, there's 8 veterinarians in the building and a vet student here from Cornell right now.
That's wild.
It's so
and then
fun,
we have
though. What a good time.
At any given time, a number of people who are pre-vet. We've got them for their gap year, or they're planning to go to vet school eventually, or not. We'll take them if they're not too. But good people with work ethic and who have a heart for the animals and the people.
Yeah, you guys have a really fun team.
Had a great time.
We did.
And the learning aspect, I feel like the growth potential of even the doctors have been doing it for a long time. I feel like you never are stopping that learning curve, and that's what is absolutely needed in this industry.
Yes, I am so excited that I've been doing this since 1992, and I still, on occasion, am seeing a species that I've never seen before, which is
so
pretty
neat.
exciting.
Yeah.
It's different than dog and cat, which it's a dog or it's a cat. Yeah, it's so interesting to still be seeing new species after all these years.
Yeah. That definitely I don't know that I could ever work apart from her schedule. Like, we typically have a pretty mimicked work schedule, and
No,
I
you
love
guys
seeing the
seem
dogs.
you guys seem pretty mind melded. It's like
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, and I love seeing the dogs and cats. I mean, I love seeing the dogs and cats,
Yeah.
but there's just something about the like curveballs when we get the exotic patients in, and I'm like, whoop, there's something different. But it's something new every single time, which we're doing that with the dogs and cats too. But it takes new to a whole new level.
Yeah.
When we're seeing those exotic pets.
Yeah,
So-
and teaching outside of your hospital too. Like
Oh, yeah.
you speaking and giving lectures. Like that's the way that I had an in to being able to do this when I don't have a clinic close
yeah.
by. And so being able to listen and learn and hear all about it and even attend a lecture during your normal business hours, you get them together and teach even in the mornings before work. So it
That's
is
right. We
really,
call them
really
ninja rounds or Jedi rounds on Wednesday mornings.
love it.
She loved it. That's all she could talk about after she attended. She was just like, can they just call me into these? Because they are amazing. Which I know
Yeah.
we've sat through a number of your lectures, even at like, we've got VMX coming up soon.
Yeah.
So we'll be there. Are you speaking there this year?
Helping somebody else with their lab, but this year not on the docket. Yeah. But I love
Okay,
going to
okay.
VMX, Veterinary Medical Expo in Orlando. We go there every year. It's the biggest conference. 10,000, 15,000 almost
Yeah, it's
veterinarians and
huge.
technicians and people who sell and work in the industry and their spouses and their families. We take over Orlando, don't we? For
We do.
5
Yes.
days.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's huge. And then we've got the one that we're hoping to go to in August in Seattle.
Yes, ARAF
In
is putting
Seattle.
On,
Yeah, it's AEMV, the Association of Exotic Mammal Veterinarians, paired up with ARAV, the Association of Reptile and Amphibian Veterinarians. And so we'll be having our joint conference up there in Seattle.
That's very cool. We're super excited. Our goal is to go to that one this year, and
Yeah.
I think that's going to be really cool.
Go to the original Starbucks.
Oh,
Yep.
Good for us non-coffee
I
drinkers.
know. I'll go get a hot chocolate in the
Okay.
middle of the summer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I get a cold chocolate? Thanks.
Well, Dr. Dan, we are so excited that you were willing to hop on the Hot Mess Express and get down with us for a little bit. And
And that he's not like out touring in his new band.
Oh, I
They
know.
just released a new album.
Death on Wheels. Yes.
We
yes,
harassed
yes,
them
yes.
quite a
Oh,
bit while we
man.
were there. Amanda had some skills in making
Yeah.
him some new album covers. So
For
you
those
guys
of
should
you
wait.
who don't know, I headed out to do a euthanasia, and I said on the way out the door, well, here I go, Death on Wheels. And when I came back, Amanda had made 3 album covers for my band, Death on Wheels, which doesn't exist and never
but I
will.
think it should.
But it
I
should.
think that
so
it could.
We'll keep working on it, guys.
You're
just so you
pretty much a rock star, so
I've checked, and that name is available. So for anybody out there, any aspiring musician,
I
it's
can't wait.
It's not taken. It's not.
I can't
taken.
wait. I'm gonna trademark it in your name. So we brought you on because we've recently seen one, and we were just like, oh my gosh, we need to talk to somebody who's probably got a lot more experience with these critters and can really help do the topic justice. And so we are here to talk with you today about prairie dogs.
And before we even start,
Oh my God. I literally almost forgot. Before we go any further, I'm Amanda,
I'm Dr. Olson.
I'm Dr. Dan.
and we are
Feces
and
and
laughter.
laughter. Yeah.
Yes, we did it. All right. Okay, now we can actually jump into the meat and potatoes. So, prairie dogs. You guys see quite a few of those, or
Yeah,
kind of where are you
not
with
as
that?
not as many in the olden days. I'd say around 2000 to 2006, we saw them. They were ever more popular, and then around 2006, something weird happened. An importer, a broker who sold animals to various places, had animals imported from Africa in his facility, and prairie dogs, which we can go into where they come from, but baby prairie dogs, all in the same facility. And the African rodents gave the United States of America rodents, prairie dogs, monkeypox. And so this is ancient history now, but 2006, there was a monkeypox outbreak, and importation of prairie dogs, the sale of prairie dogs and the ownership of prairie dogs, of new prairie dogs, was the harvesting of them was put on hold for about 1.5 to 2 years until everybody calmed down and realized, okay, our prairie dogs that we have in pet stores don't normally have exposure to monkeypox. They're not going to carry monkeypox. That was a one-off where African rodents in a warehouse facility gave prairie dogs in a neighboring cage monkeypox, and 6 or 8 or possibly more human cases of monkeypox happened. And so that was, they put the kibosh on prairie dogs for a few years, but prairie dogs have been making their way back. As pets go, I'd still say get a guinea pig, but prairie dogs are decent pets on a scale of 1 to 10. They're in the middle. A Gaboon Viper would be a 1, and a guinea pig is near the top, a 10. And prairie dogs are probably a 5 or a 6 because they can inflict a painful bite.
They are mean.
Not all.
They're
not
not
all
all
of
mean.
them. No, but they can.
But
they
they
can
can.
bite. And all of my staff knows that you can get bitten by a prairie dog. And as far as ease of care, though, they're pretty easy to care for. What do you want to know?
Everything. So I guess that, first of all, you just blew my mind. I had no idea about all of that stuff. With
I was
prairie
working at a
That's
pet
because you
store,
weren't
and
born
they
yet.
came and confiscated. Oh yeah, right. Come on,
dogs.
give us a break.
Tell me more.
Don't even make her think that. Don't give her any big ego over here.
Well, they didn't. I mean, they weren't talking about prairie dogs in middle school where you were. at the
Or
time.
high school.
I was working at a pet store at the time, and the Gambian rat that came in from Africa was at a place that was kind of like, I guess, an expo or something in Tinley Park that we
Yes.
attended in order to get our prairie dogs.
Okay.
So we were like on a list that had to be like remove our prairie dogs. It was wild. It was a wild time.
The Gambian pouched rat, which is, yeah, it's a rat, but it's not the same as the rat that you would find in a gutter. It's the rat that they train to sniff out landmines. Okay,
Yeah.
The Gambian pouched rat was one of the rodents imported from Africa that carried monkeypox. The other was some sort of African porcupine and a couple of other things. Yeah, that's
It was wild.
your memory is correct. It was the Gambian pouched rat. But domestically in the United States, let me talk about where they come from. How about that?
Yeah, tell me.
Okay. So
Because a
they
lot of
don't-
people probably don't even know what prairie
Yeah.
dogs are.
So first off, the prairie dog is a ground squirrel, and it weighs as much or more than a guinea pig. For all intents and purposes, face on, if it looks at you, you're looking at a very fat squirrel without much of a tail.
Bushy tail.
Yeah.
I love it.
And if you didn't know what you're looking at, you might think it's a groundhog, but it's much smaller than a groundhog. But it's in that same sort of group of ground squirrels and can weigh anywhere on the low side, probably 1.5 pounds to 2 pounds, somewhere in that.
But we never see them that because they're obese.
Sometimes they get fatter than that. Yes, they can get fatter. And here's the thing. They don't breed in captivity very well. So where do almost all prairie dogs come from? They're vacuumed out of the ground in somebody's cow field out west where they're native, and they're considered a pest.
Oh.
They are vacuumed with a chimney sweeps sort of vacuum.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And
You're painting me an amazing picture right now.
yes. And then they go through the pipe bump, 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 and then they are spit out into the back of a trump against a dangling piece of carpet, punk, and then they drop down into the bedding in the back of the truck. Now you have.
You wonder why they bite you, Amanda.
Now you have a stressed out youngster who has just been weaned, and you have youngsters that were not necessarily related because you're vacuuming all over the cow field, and you take them and you try to get them to eat rabbit food and hay, and then you sell them to a broker. The broker then is going to sell them to a distributor, and then they wind up in your home. And that's 3 or 4 homes in the short time span of a couple of weeks. And then you get your baby prairie dog. And guess what? I mean, it might have a respiratory infection, right? But
it might have a concussion.
Or a concussion. Well, people have gotten this down to a science, but essentially, on the one hand, the guy is cleaning up prairie dogs out of a field, and now he has this byproduct, in quotes, that he can market. And so he's getting paid at both ends, hopefully. And but that's where prairie dogs first started coming from. Now, they don't breed all that well in captivity, but they can breed in captivity. But captivity to make a hedgehog breed probably means you got to let them burrow in dirt. And so you got to have dirt and a paddock and a way for them to develop and make themselves an underground burrow. And most homes don't have that. Most prairie dogs are not in that sort of environment.
Right.
And so they just don't really breed. There's another reason in captivity prairie dogs aren't breeding a lot. And that's because an intact prairie dog around this time of year in the winter becomes ugly, mean, nasty, hard to handle. And we call that their rut. In the winter is when they breed. And some months later, in the early spring, late winter, they have their babies. This, in the Northern Hemisphere, they're in the middle of their rut. And so this is the time of year we are seeing people bring in less than 1 year old hedgehogs to be spayed or neutered. And we did a spay yesterday. Yeah. So they don't breed in captivity after you neuter them. You neuter them to make them a less angry pet.
Right.
And then they're not going to breed in captivity.
Yeah. That's wild.
Yeah. We just learned so much.
Intact prairie dogs don't make really good pets year round. Mm-hmm. Some of them, but I told you that they can bite. Even a friendly prairie dog will bite if you really get it angry.
Yeah.
And their bites, they mean business. They will sink their teeth in to the meat of your palm, and then you'll hear those teeth going get together inside the meat of your palm.
Gosh.
And you're like, please, Lord, let go.
It's true. It's so true.
Oh my gosh. I've seen the teeth on those jokers. The one that you just had was...
You saw some teeth. It didn't have all, but...
Yes.
That's a lot of... we'll probably talk about that too.
That is wild. So I guess for somebody who is maybe thinking about bringing a prairie dog into their home, I know you talked a little bit about burrowing and things like that, but what would an ideal habitat look like for a prairie dog as a pet?
So we're going to get into their diseases later, but we don't want prairie dogs to stay in a cage with cage bars that they can bang their teeth on.
Okay.
If they can get their little nose in and around cage bars, you're going to see them chewing on those cage bars, and that will lead to a disease we'll get to later. I said prairie dogs aren't that easy to care for. One of the things that makes them hard to care for is that they really require kind of a smooth-walled glass or plexiglass enclosure like you would have in a museum. Okay? And it can't have wood, or it shouldn't have a lot of wood, or he's going to chew his way out, right? Mm-hmm. So it needs to be kind of a plexiglass enclosure with some vents so that we can get airflow, but we don't want unnatural metal substrate that they can bang their teeth on, because that will lead to a dental disease we'll talk about in a bit. It would be an enclosure that's got a pretty deep, soft bedding, and the recycled paper products would be suitable. Pine shavings are probably okay, but I'd really prefer something less piney smelling, like aspen shavings. We certainly don't want cedar shavings because he's going to have his face down in there and taking in a lot of that oil. It's going to be like living in a garage, inhaling gas fumes. So pine is okay, cedar is out, aspen's okay, but shredded paper or pelleted paper bedding, hay would be fine, straw would be fine. But we want them to be able to burrow a little bit.
Yeah.
And we can even help them burrow by putting tubing, either PVC piping or even the tubing for a dryer under the bedding, or even sitting on top of the bedding. They like to go through tunnels, and so that would be fun for them. We want a prairie dog to live on one level. He shouldn't really have a bunch of shelves, because a prairie dog's brain is set up in 2 dimensions, not in 3. So a prairie dog given shelves will walk right off the edge of the shelves. They'll walk right off the end of an exam table. Amen?
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's so
They
true.
will walk off the end of an exam table. If you put them on a set of stairs, they're not going to go down the stairs. They're going to go right off into the foyer.
Oh my God.
Yeah, because that's the shortest route. and what happens when and they
It's all from the vacuum. I bet it's all from the vacuum.
Yeah, it's all from brain damage. But yeah, they really don't know and how to navigate 3 dimensions very well. So if they can climb up something, they will, and then they'll fall. And that's how they get another form of tooth damage is by falling and breaking their incisors.
And that's
Because
what
when they
we
fall,
had.
they
That's
go
why
nose-
ours was here. It was I think a combination platter. It did fall, and that's when the incisors broke. But it also is a chewer and had some damage to its mouth from that too.
So now when you're talking about, I know you said to stay away from those wire type cages.
Yeah.
So for people that are listening into this, you're talking more of like the ones that you're going to buy out of the pet store for rabbits, guinea pigs, those large ones that have like the plastic bottoms and the big
that's
wire
unsuitable.
tops.
It's unsuitable long term.
Right.
You might find in our hospital setting that we use that kind of cage with a heat lamp over it so we can see and treat him. But for long term,
Right.
you don't want long term bang, 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 bang teeth.
Yeah.
For short term, it's okay. But for long term, he really needs a smooth sided plexi or glass type of enclosure. But you want ventilation at the same time.
Yeah.
And you mentioned the tunnels and how that's enjoyable for them. What other enrichment do you offer for these guys long term?
Yeah. If you can find a large rodent wheel, they might hop on it and run on it. They will pick up and move around items in the cage. So you could put food items in a wiffle ball or one of those wire balls, and you could make them forage that way. In the sense that they forage in the wild, most of their foraging is going out and trimming grass and herbs down to about that tall so they can see for a long way.
Yeah.
And then they sit up on their hind legs and they have cleared a field of fire so that they can monitor their environment for predators.
Right.
So they actually eat a lot like a rabbit, and their diet is very rabbit-like. It can be a rabbit pellet. It can be a rodent chow, like a rat chow, along with some monkey biscuits. Monkey biscuits, for those who don't know, are literally a biscuit that zoos feed to monkeys, but you'll also find them packaged and sold as a parrot food for larger parrots that have hands that hold food. Monkey biscuits. They will eat insects. Most people are not aware that squirrels, all squirrels, chipmunks included, also eat insects. And so they will eat insects. They don't need a lot of meat or anything, though. It's not like they're carnivores. They're just opportunistic bug eaters sometimes. I have seen them eat some strange things. Like people have learned that they'll eat corn silk, corn husks, leafy greens, some berries, some seeds and nuts. But that's, primarily it should be grass hay and a pellet, either a pellet made entirely for prairie dogs or something for a rabbit is suitable.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Very cool.
So are prairie dogs, and I'm not sure what the answer is, but the ones that I've seen come in have always been solo prairie dogs at home. Are they more of a solitary creature, or are they more of like a pack animal?
They live in colonies
Okay.
of 20 or more individuals sometimes. So it is most natural for them to have other prairie dogs around.
Okay.
And that for that reason, having 2 to 3 prairie dogs is preferable over a solitary prairie dog. But if you spend a lot of time with your prairie dog, they can accommodate to being a solitary prairie dog with a human being.
Yeah.
It's not ideal situation for a prairie dog, for somebody who sees their prairie dog for a few hours, goes to work. The prairie dog is alone for 9 or 10 hours, and then they see him for a few hours in the evening. Prairie dogs are diurnal like you and me. They wake up in the morning, they go to bed at night. And so they are really lacking something that their brain and their life force, their energy requires, and that is interaction with others. And that other can be a human. In some situations, I've seen it work where they will become friends with another pet, like a dog in the house. You have to watch the dog, of course. You can't have a dog that loves squirrels. Oh, squirrel! Because this is a squirrel. But they can get along with other animals and learn to pal around and get companionship. If you had a nice, gentle, big, golden retriever or something, they can curl up with a cat. They can curl up with and be friends with another animal. All right. So I've got a criminal here at the practice who's wanting to butt into my I'm going to ask if you can. I'll just have to do this another time. Yeah, because I'm in a podcast.
He's really famous right now. Excuse us.
But it's going to be I'll have to look it up. Thanks.
Thanks.
Excuse me.
Thanks.
She's going back to jail. She's going back to jail. It's good seeing you. That was somebody asking me to write a prescription. So what are you going to do?
Can't get away from him. You had to hide better.
Yeah.
I have to hide. Yeah, I thought I was okay down here in the basement.
Like you mentioned multiple times talking through why they come and see the vet. What are the most common presentations that we have for them, which I feel like we've kind of hit on, but can you talk a little bit more about that?
By far the most common presentation for me is upper respiratory stuffy nose. And over 50% of the time, that's because of a dental disease unique to the squirrel family. Be that a chipmunk up to a groundhog, all members of the squirrel family. And the squirrels I see the most are gray squirrels and prairie dogs. What happens is they hammer away at their teeth until the tooth root, I'm going to cheat and call it a tooth root. The tooth root becomes damaged. And for the world that doesn't know this, the incisors of a squirrel and many other rodents, all rodents, grow throughout life like a toenail. And the root of that tooth that wants to grow throughout life, when you damage it, it ceases to grow outwards in a hook-like fashion, or if it's a lower tooth, up. It ceases to grow in a fashion where they meet in the middle, and it grows outward at the root. And when it grows outward at the root, up here in the nasal passages, behind the nasal passages, it grows so big and causes inflammation and obstruction so that it blocks the upper respiratory. It also is happening in the lower jaw. Most vets don't even think about this, but it's also happening in the lower jaw, but there's no airway here, so you just don't detect it.
Yeah.
The other way you know it's happening is that these teeth aren't growing like they should. And they begin to wear down to the gum line. And if all 4 teeth were to have this happen at the same time, you'd just end up with a prairie dog that has a stuffy nose and you can't see any front teeth. But that isn't the way things happen. Usually one tooth stops growing before the other. And so people will discover, oh my gosh, my prairie dog's lower incisor is growing so long that it's growing up into the lip. So that's presentation number 2, is an overgrowth of the incisors. Again, it comes down to damage by that incisor's buddy. If your buddy doesn't grow, then you continue to grow and grow and grow. Typically, 2 teeth grow and they meet in the middle, and they're wearing down at the rate that they're growing. And so they never grow too long.
Yeah.
But if this tooth no longer grows, well, this one's looking for his buddy, and he's growing and growing until he pokes up into the upper jaw.
That is wild.
And the prairie dog has difficulty eating. So that's, and then the other thing is trauma. I told you, they have no fear of heights. So they fall off of stuff. They break their teeth, 3 dental diseases in a row, one of them masquerading as upper respiratory infection. Or they break a bone, or they break their back. Falling off of something, but they're an animal with all the organs that any other animal has. They can get an upset stomach, they can get a urinary tract infection, they can get tumors of the reproductive tract or tumors on the liver, you name it. They can get the obesity. Obesity is a disease, amen? So they don't do anything all day long.
Right.
But it's cute when you feed them and they sit up and they eat like this. And so the problem is people feed them a diet that's too rich. Really, in the wild, they would be eating grass. And in captivity, people want to give them grass, plus banana chips and raisins and corn on the cob. And the list goes on and on.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't be,
Yeah, no, you're fine. So as far as prairie dogs coming into the clinic, do you typically recommend that they're spayed or neutered?
Yeah, that's completely up to the individual. But I just tell them, if your prairie dog starts showing its butt, if it shows its behind and acts out like a teenager who's in rebellion, starts to bite, go ahead and get it neutered, spayed or neutered.
Yeah.
Because both the males, both the males and the females will act out, and that will calm them down, and they won't return to that behavior each fall.
Nice.
Yeah.
Speaking
of behinds,
you mentioned
Amanda's pretty obsessed with.
I am. You mentioned prairie dogs showing their butts, and
and boy, do they!
They do. We recently had one here that had to be sedated for, I think, some trauma to the mouth, and while she was waking up, her body all loosey goosey and relaxed.
Yep.
Her butt.
Yeah.
Was
her anus
on display. It was the butthole was on
butthole.
display, and there was some things happening back there that looked like a sea anemone or something you'd find on the Sci-Fi Channel.
Exactly.
And can you please enlighten me, because my brain was blown.
Okay.
God.
Yes, prairie dogs are unique in that they have several scent glands, 3 of them at like the 12.
3. Yes, they are just like this.
The 12, the 6, and the 3. And when they are excited, they will do this with their little butthole. And yes, it looks like a creature from Sci-Fi.
Yes.
But those are their little scent glands, and what they're doing is they're averting their scent glands. Some odor is coming out, and if another prairie dog was to smell that, they'd be like, "Oh, that's my alarm scent. There's fear. I should run. I should run because the others in my colony are making the alarm scent." So, if you ask me, that is, they do that when they are alarmed.
Okay.
And so those are little nubs of a scent gland, and yes. Let's say up to a 1/4 inch long. It looks like 3 little pink worms are coming out of their rear end. Do not be alarmed.
Describing it to a T.
Do not adjust your screen. This is normal. This is normal.
I can't wait for Amanda to
And
share that
I
video
know,
with the masses.
with everybody. I told Dr. Olson, I'm like, I can't wait for the 2025 wrap up when Google does like their big video
Trending.
their trending video of the year and what was the top search of 2025, and I can't wait for it to be Prairie
January,
Dog
because of all
butthole.
we thought, because of all of our listeners, all of them out there.
All of the masses that listen.
Yeah, all 12. All 12.
Wait, did you get my login to see our stats?
That counts me. All 12.
That's all I
12
need. You said
people
you
are
listen
gonna
to
search
us.
it.
That's all I need.
Yeah. Really though, can you put a video? When you edit, can you put a little screen up here?
Oh, I can.
Oh, she will.
I will. Everybody has to experience that. It was just.
And she didn't want to hear any explanation. Like when I tried to, no, like I'm so glad you came. We should have talked beforehand, and I should have told you to go along with some weird story, because she was not having like normal anatomy. She was like, absolutely not. That should not be happening. And I've decided that these are alien spaceship worms that are coming out, and they're going to infect all of us.
It's the Sarlacc.
That's exactly what it looks like. I don't even need to share the video now.
I don't.
That was so good. I'm thank you for explaining it to me, because she refused.
You're
to.
welcome.
Just kidding.
You're welcome.
So on top of, having them spayed and watching out for these different health issues that can occur, do you have a recommendation of how often they should be coming to a veterinarian?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think all pets and exotics are no different. Should be seeing a vet every 6 to 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
With an animal that has a short lifespan, like a hamster, 2.5 years, being seen by a vet every 6 months, we're lucky if we get to see it 4 or 5 times in its whole life.
Right.
And if it's a prairie dog, we're going to be lucky if we see it between 10 and 20 times in its whole life. The thing is that if something starts to go wrong in an exotic animal, particularly a wildlife species like a prairie dog, they're hardwired like prairie dogs are. They're wild animals. So they're going to be, and they're colony animals. They're social. So if they're sick, they're going to try to pretend to be well so they don't be kicked out of the family, out of the colony, away from the safety of the colony, to become food for a coyote. So what we want to do is try to get them examined every 6 months or so. So they, if a problem is occurring, we're picking it up early and before it becomes so bad. And it's going to hide its signs from you. A bird will hide its signs. Reptiles hide their signs. A prairie dog will hide its signs from you better than a dog or cat will. And so it's going to be sicker by the time you notice it than a dog or cat would be. And that's why getting any exotic pet to the vet, as soon as you notice that there's something, don't wait 2 weeks. He's already been faking it for 2 weeks, and he can no longer fake it anymore. So you're waiting two more weeks means he's been sick as heck for a month. Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. So you just touched on it right then, but that they are first and foremost, so they're wildlife.
Yeah.
And they've been brought to captivity.
Yeah.
Are there any special, are there any regulations to keeping prairie dogs or permits that owners need to have?
Sure.
If
So if you're in a state, where they are native, like Colorado, maybe, where did I visit recently? Wyoming, they're probably illegal to own there, just like it would be illegal to catch and keep, and it is illegal to catch and keep a box turtle or a squirrel here. You can't keep a robin that you find on the sidewalk, a baby bird. You can't keep those as pets. People do it, and it's a free country and all, but if you are caught, there are ramifications. And most people don't know how to properly care for wildlife. So I would not recommend keeping one that you find in the wild, any wild animal. That being said, prairie dogs, it's been tried and true. If they catch them the way they do and they wind up in your home, more often than not, you have a pretty decent pet. I told you, it's not a great pet, that will never bite you, or that
Solid
will
5
be.
or 6.
It's a 5 or 6 out of 10. A 10 being good. The perfect pet is probably, depends on your definition of perfect, but pretty close to it. One that recognizes you and won't mind being held and will squeak when you come to see it. Guinea pig. A pet monkey. Probably a 1 or a 2. Most people should not have no business having a pet monkey.
Not at all.
That being said, I see pet monkeys almost every day. Now, prairie dogs. Prairie dogs are somewhere between those extremes. Why aren't they better than that? They are prone to some diseases that occur if you don't keep them in a pristine, pure, metal cage free environment, metal cage bar free environment, and that's hard to provide. So for those reasons, and they'll bite. For those reasons, those are the only downsides that I see. Other than that, they're cute as heck. They're interactive. They like to have their face stroked. They're they put up their little tail and they demonstrate for you, and they recognize their family member as a member of. They think they're people.
Yeah.
And we think that they think that we're a prairie dog. And they interact and they love, they're social by nature like a dog. Okay?
Yeah.
Whereas a hamster is rather aloof. A hamster could give a crap about you because they're like cats, they're solitary. You understand? So this is a social animal that has turned out to be a pretty decent pet if you take all possible pets into consideration. And there's a lot worse pets. I don't mean to dog them too much, but it is harder to keep a prairie dog and to do it right than it is to keep a guinea pig and to do it right. And a hamster or a gerbil, those are all easier to keep and to do it right. Oh, and by the way, Mom and Dad, a prairie dog's a pretty long commitment. If you get a guinea pig, you're looking at 4 or 5 years, 6 years. If you're really doing a good job, 8 years is call, the record books. Okay? For a guinea pig. A prairie dog, if done well, can live to be 8 or 9 years. Okay? A hamster, 1.5 to 2.5 years, right? So it all depends on what you're looking for. Longevity. If you don't want your kid to get bit, let's stick with a guinea pig. If you've already had a guinea pig and a rabbit and you just love everything about prairie dogs and you're going to do prairie dogs right, get a prairie dog. But I'd say get 2 and train them both to be that you are part of their colony, and let them entertain each other if you got to go away for 5-6 hours so they're not feeling lonely. And set them up in a cage environment like you are the Smithsonian Institution and give them the best prairie dog life that you can give them without exposing them to risks. The worst case I ever saw was one that went behind the fridge and chewed on the wire, broke its back. The shock. The shock made all the muscles jerk at once, broke his back, and we had to euthanize him. So that's the worst. That's the worst of the worst. Okay.
Well, you can't end it on that though, because I feel like we're wrapping up. Do you have any fun, uplifting stories about prairie dogs?
Fun, uplifting stories about prairie dogs. Yes, there are many that live to a ripe old age, and they. So you want. Uplifting. A prairie dog will learn. Prairie dogs in the wild do something called a jump yap. A jump yap. If I have to, I'll demonstrate it. Do I have to?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Okay,
because
good.
a jump yap is this. Right here. Got me? On slow-mo. Right here. Okay. Yeah. So.
This is the best day of my life.
A jump yap. If your prairie dog considers you part of its prairie dog family, and you go in your house and you go on the other side of the house, you might hear back to you. And they
If
will
you don't
learn
start
to
doing
jump
this
yap.
in a
I know,
clinic to
I was
me,
gonna
I will
say,
be so
I-
pissed off.
You can make them jump yap to you. And prairie dogs have like a 9-word vocabulary, a 9-sound vocabulary, depending on who you are and whose study you look at. And they're very interesting. And like I said, they will sit up, close their eyes halfway, and expose their teeth. And for all intents and purposes, it looks like you're about to be struck by a cobra. And what he's doing is he's asking for you to stroke his little face, because in the wild, 2 prairie dogs will look like they're kissing. And that's their greeting. And so if you go over to a
You
friendly
don't greet me
hedgehog,
like that.
a friendly prairie dog, if you go over to a friendly prairie dog, they'll oftentimes sit up and open their mouth, expose their teeth, and if you know what you're doing, you just go in there and you stroke their little muzzle from the nose back across the whiskers.
And if you're wrong, you'll only get the worst bite of your life.
And their little eyes will
You'll
roll
only
back in their
lose the
head.
meat of your hand.
Yeah, and if you're wrong, the worst that can happen is you get the tip of your finger removed.
The worst. That's not that bad. That is wild.
Yeah.
I kind of love prairie dogs
No,
even
look
more
what
now.
you've done.
I don't want one. I like my reptiles, but you just this gave me a whole
Yeah.
new.
And I can't wait.
Outlook
Now
on
we know we
prairie
have to
dogs.
talk to him about guinea pigs, because clearly fave.
I know.
Not just guinea pigs are look, people ask, should I get a monkey? I'm like, no. But they don't ask oftentimes, and so I end up treating monkeys. And I've treated venomous snakes. I don't recommend those as pets. There are certain pets, though, that do really well. And so rabbits, guinea pigs, we see them every day. Ferrets, we see them every day. Depending on what you're looking for. I would just say, before you get any exotic animal pet, do your research.
Yeah.
Look into the pros, the cons. How hard are they to take care of? What diseases could they get? And are you prepared to financially take care of it? Because just because it's a small pet doesn't mean it's a veterinary carefree pet.
Right.
Right.
Every animal that you can think of gets its own
Oh my
headaches and
gosh.
own stomach aches and
Yes.
its own specific nutritional problems. And
Yeah.
we just happen to be a practice where, we see those things every day.
Yeah. And I would say the majority of the time that we see exotics is, we see them because it's lack of husbandry.
It's improper
they're-
husbandry.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. So
Yeah, it's just mistakes.
yeah, it's learning opportunities. So, anywho, oh my God, this has been,
Yeah,
I
this is
love this.
awesome.
Thank you so much for
Right.
taking time. Anything that you feel like we've missed, I feel like you covered it all. You did such a great job. But
Thanks. No, I think we covered it pretty well.
yeah, yes. Thank you so much for joining us. And you've now opened the door so that we can harass you and bring you on more often.
Sure.
We'll find you at VMX and, maybe we can talk about it.
Sure.
But yeah, thank you so, so much.
All right. This was awesome. Thanks for the
Yeah.
invite.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll do it again soon.
And for our listeners, we'll see you next week.
All right.
Bye-bye.